Okay, GOhioCast podcast 2025. Let's welcome associate head coach for the Army West Point Black Knights, Scott Green. Did I get everything right in that intro?
You did. You maybe want to include America's team. Um,
America's team, Army West Point Black Knights.
Official nickname Black Knights, but I think we're mostly known as America's team at this point in time.
We'll just go with America's team. Yeah, I mean, you got some Captain America looking type dudes on the team. So, yeah, we'll allow it. We'll allow it. But
I'm in, yeah.
how you doing, man? How's 2025 going for the Greens and the Black Knights?
All is well. Just kind of hanging out here in Highland Falls. Pretty good season going on so far. Headed down to DC. Gonna wrestle American on inauguration weekend in the Capitol. So we always like that one. It's a little America's team versus American. Um, and just getting into the meat of the conference schedule. So, pretty good so far for the guys and hoping to build on some of the momentum we've had in the end of 2024.
Will you guys actually be able to catch the inauguration and walk up for it at all?
I don't think so. I think I mean, not to get political, but that we weren't sure if we were going down there to wrestle or if they were going to go down there in uniform and have to take care of some other stuff. But
I hope it's not the other one. I hope it's just a wrestle.
yeah. I think it's a busy weekend in DC, right? Last time we
Correct.
went down there, we did a bunch of stuff. We did like Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We got the guys, around because there's obviously a lot of alum, old grads in the DC area. A lot of guys that are West Point wrestlers work at the Pentagon, and so we did a lot more surrounding the duel last time, but this time it's gonna be mostly a business trip. Get down there, compete, and come home.
So you should have a good crowd or a good turnout of alum because
Yeah.
American is from it's from DC. When I took a train and met
Yep.
Tig Moore when he was the coach, it was like
Yeah.
20 minutes from Jimmy Jordan's Capitol building where his actual congressional
Yes.
building. When I left the Capitol, it was like a 25 minute train ride, if
Yeah.
that, I think.
For sure. No, we've already had contact from a bunch of people looking for tickets, looking to come over and support us, looking to see when we're getting down there. So it's always a good trip. And that's been something that I find. It's been a few years since we chatted. But since I've been at West Point, man, we're a great road team, right? There's people everywhere that are West Point grads. So it's always, we have a good crowd when we go to Philly. Obviously went down to the Citadel this year. A lot of people, a lot of military bases down in South Carolina. So it's good to know that wherever we go, that's the whole America's team. Yeah, sure. Some of it is a nod to the fact that we're actually Team America, right? The guys are going to serve the country afterwards. But there's people that are West Point grads all over the country, and it's helped us build our brand, and it helps us always feel supported on the road. A lot of times we'll outdraw whoever we're wrestling.
So the biggest thing that I notice about when we're talking DC, we're talking West Point, we're talking Naval Academy, we're talking Air Force Academy, any of the Academy grads. I almost feel like DC is like the ultimate destination for them as far as
Yeah.
career. You're
Yeah.
working at the Pentagon, you're working whether you go into some other branch, whether you go into military contractor after your service is over, or if you stay career. I feel like DC is kind of like where they want to be in the final destination if you want to be higher up in either government contracting and or obviously the federal government. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, it's a big area for alum for sure, and it's a destination for a lot of people who's going to be career army or career military. But I mean, like the whole like kind of area, you got Quantico's right there. We have a grad who cross commissioned last year, Nate Lucas. He was the captain of our team, and he's a Marine officer. He's living at Quantico right now, so he's coming over for the duel. It's just the whole metro area, besides from just DC, is I think the only other place that would be comparable is Texas, because there's so many military bases there, and they always play like the Army Air Force football game in Texas because there are so many people there that are serving. So that's a big area for it. But I mean, it's the seat of the federal government, right? So you got your three-letter agencies all there, and there's West Point and Academy grads involved in all of those. So DC is a big one for sure.
And it's also centrally located and close to one another. If you think of Baltimore from that area is not far. You can
Sure.
take a train up and down the East Coast and be in DC. You can be in obviously Philadelphia, New York City. Baltimore's even closer. And
Yep.
you can get everywhere. It's so quick. Everything's
Yeah.
not a connecting flight. Everything's a direct flight. If you're gonna go
Yep.
from Dulles, it's pretty direct. Everything's pretty close. So it's like it's easy to get in and get out of DC. So it makes sense if you're going to be in military industrial complex and then obviously the federal government, three
Yep.
branches, all the agencies that you mentioned. It's the place to be. And my high school coach, George Bergman, his son's a Naval Academy grad, Alex Bergman.
Sure.
Alex, I believe, is currently in Alexandria, sounds right.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
it's Nova, right? So it's
All
all
right there.
there.
Yep.
All right. And
Yeah.
George Mason's not too far from there either, right?
Right there. Right there.
Right there.
Yep. So
It's
you're
all right
talking
there.
Northern Virginia, the whole, the whole area is, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a suburb of DC, but the everything the population's so dense there, right? Like you're talking about the train, like we'll take the train. I mean, I will at least. I'll take the train home from Philadelphia after NCAAs, and it'll drop me off, probably 3, 4 miles from my house here up in Highland Falls. So it's easy to do once you navigate it. It's kind of the true test of a West Point cadet is when you can figure out how to get to LaGuardia or JFK on the train and not have to have like a Uber or something like that to drop you off there. Then you're kind of a true West Point cadet when you can figure that out.
Navigating that, obviously. You guys are up in the
Yeah,
Hudson River Valley.
right.
So you're north and a little west of New York City, correct?
Pretty close to straight up north, yeah,
Just
but a
dead
little
north
bit
almost?
west.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's so beautiful, man. That when you
Yeah.
hike and you post any videos, I'm like, this is living. And to think that it's within an hour of New York City,
Yeah.
obviously traffic pending, but like unbelievably beautiful area in the Hudson River Valley in New York, and it's just like
Yeah.
it doesn't even realize it. You don't even realize how close you are to Manhattan, right? Like because I googled it, I was doing
Yep.
the directions when you guys were playing Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah. Yep.
It was like 55 minutes.
Well, I
That's
mean,
the
like,
Bronx,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that's the Bronx, but I mean, like, if I'm going there, I'm going on the train. Um, no one drives, you know what I mean? So yeah, you're walking out 2 blocks from Yankee Stadium from the subway. You're 45 minutes from here, a subway ride. So a little bit further into Manhattan, you walk out underneath Madison Square Garden, and you're in the city. Yep.
It's unreal, and it's like I have friends out west. I have my buddy Kevin Roberts is out in Spokane, and he's been all around the West, right? Like he's lived in Oregon, he's lived in Washington, Wyoming, and I we'll talk, and he's like, he forgets how close everything is here
Mhm.
because
Yep.
everything there's an 8 hour, a 6 hour, a
Sure.
12
Yep.
hour. I think when his son, the 149 pounder for Drew Roberts for Minnesota, wrestled for
Yeah.
Court Lane High. Their
Yeah.
state tournament was in Pocatello. It
Yeah.
was like a 10.5 hour bus ride from Coeur d'Alene. They had to go into
No,
Montana,
I mean,
I believe.
yeah, we have kids on our team that, that they're going 2 hours each way to club practices when they were in high school, you know? And that's kind of far into us up here because, you can pretty much throw a rock and hit six pretty good wrestling clubs around us. And, you talk about a 3 hour drive, you're going to run into a dozen, Division I schools.
Yeah,
So,
it's crazy. And then from PA, you guys are right there from PA.
yep,
Obviously, New York's got great high school wrestling, Jersey. So the
sure.
high school wrestling around you guys is incredible too. You don't have to really go that far to recruit Army, West Point Black Knights. But I gotta ask, I am an Ohio guy. You know I'm an Ohio homer. How are my
Hmm.
Ohio guys doing on the team right now? How are my guys doing from Ohio?
Love them. They're just we got a pretty good blue collar ethic on our team. So. Ohio and Pennsylvania guys fit that brand pretty well.
Yeah.
So we're always going to be recruiting those two states, not just because they're good at wrestling, but because the majority of kids that we've gotten from those are small town kids who, they're just great West Point cadets, not just good wrestlers, but they typically from a family that values service to the country. They're typically from a town where when they get a West Point appointment, it's like the greatest thing that ever happened to the town, you know? So there's a ton of pride in those states for kids that are going to go to a military academy. So they fit right in here, very, very, very well.
So if you look at Cole Hoffer, okay, obviously Cole Hoffer, he's an Ohio guy,
Yep.
okay, and then we look at heavyweight
Lucas.
Lucas Stoddard, right?
Yep.
Those guys are both from D3 schools
Yeah,
in the state of Ohio, so they won small school Division 3 titles, right?
they
And
did.
like you said, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows that those guys go to Army West Point. It's a really big deal. And then Lucas won the Pan Ams, right?
Lucas won Pan Am's. He was fifth at the World Championships.
Pretty good.
So
I
that
like him.
that was pretty awesome. Yeah. And then, just going back a little bit, you're talking about last year All-American Ben Pazook, right?
Luke from Carrollton,
Who's
Ohio, just south of Canton. Stud,
hmm
hammer.
I went to his wedding this summer, and I think I got caught behind like four different Amish dudes. He lives out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, down there in Tuscarawas County, I believe it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was not a part of Ohio that I was familiar with, and I'm driving my car, and I'm like, wait, that's like I'm in Amish country right now. I gotta find this place.
Your foothills of the Appalachians as well
Yeah.
there. That's kind of
Yep.
like where you
Hmm.
start to get into the foothills of Appalachia, and you're not too far from Ohio U, within 2 hours of Ohio
Yep.
U, within 2 hours of Kent State, Cleveland State, and then obviously 2 hours of Ohio State. So you're right there in the heart
Yeah.
of it all. Speaking, being close to stuff. But yeah, that guy changed your guys' culture though. Pazook came there. He beat a Graham guy in the state finals. I remember interviewing him afterwards, and he was just so confident. Um,
Hmm.
he just everything that is West Point, that guy was about it. What's his duty station and where's he at now?
He's in Hawaii, field artillery. That's total Ben Pazook right there. He just finished up here. We have a program that's called Athletic Intern, where after they graduate, they'll serve an internship in the athletic department until typically December or January. So he was working with athletes up at our prep school, and then he's at Bullock now. He's not in Hawaii yet, but his first duty station is going to be out in Hawaii, and he'll be there for a couple of years for sure.
Shucks, I feel terrible for that guy. Feel
Yeah,
terrible
yeah,
for that guy that he had to graduate out of there and go to dreary Hawaii.
yeah.
I
No,
did
he's.
a coverage there once, man. Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I have not. No, no.
Okay. I did the coverage there. It was Oklahoma. It was Oregon State, Minnesota, and American. And we
Okay.
went out and I was there for 7 days. And the only day it rained is when they had the competition in the gym.
Uh, so a little rough life for you that
It
week, huh?
was amazing, dude. It was unreal. And then I did the Reno TOC before that. So I
Yeah,
was out west for like 2.5 weeks and it was during the Christmas break.
yeah.
It was so awesome.
Nevada, Hawaii,
Yeah.
Siberia.
Oregon. I went to Oregon for like four or
Yeah,
5 days and went whitewater rafting, almost died. That was great. The
yep.
almost dying part, not so great, but like all the other stuff, doing the Oregon winter stuff, and it's dreary, it rains, but you get to hunker down and hang out with your friends. Who I got a bunch of buddies who live out there, so it was good. It
Every
was
once in a while, wrestling does this. More times than not, we're spending a week or 10 days in Fargo every summer, or like Akron, Ohio. Those are not trips that my wife enjoys going on. But every once in a while, we mix in a Vegas or a Hawaii for you, apparently. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, it was worth it, and it was a last second Willie Saylor thing.
yeah. Well, is
Hey,
anything?
stop! I'm not gonna go. You're gonna go do this, and I was like, I guess you're twisting my arm. And it was before I was married, before I had kids. My wife got super angry and jealous and was like, I'm going. And she
Hmm.
bought a ticket last second and met me in
Oh,
Hawaii
there you
the
go.
day after I was there. It was awesome. And then my uncle still lives, and he lives on like Kauai now.
Okay.
So my uncle met us there and we did New Year's Eve and it was, dude, it was awesome. Then we got back and got stuck in LAX for a day and it was a pretty awesome thing. And, it's just like you're saying, wrestling will occasionally take you some cool places, not just Akron, Ohio, and not just, middle of nowhere, wherever it may be, Iowa, Oklahoma. You get to go to some pretty cool places.
Hey man, Akron, Ohio is the rubber capital of the world. So
It sure is. It sure is. Okay. Let's talk about 2024, 2025 duels. I know you guys have the Army Black Knight Invitational, right?
hmm
Penn State was in town for that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You get to see an all-time great team on the mat at your home place,
Yep.
right? I'm sure you guys, how many had you probably got head to heads with them 10
Just about
times,
every weight.
15
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
right? Like a bunch.
Yep.
That's valuable. You want to see that, right? And then what good duels have you guys had so far this year?
Well, I mean, this year especially, for our guys, we really wanted to get them a measuring stick. We think we're pretty good. And we wanted to show them what that top level looks like. So having Penn State at your tournament allows you to do that. You're not just going to see one good guy from Penn State, but you're going to see a couple good guys from Penn State. And then, we went out as part of a Frank Popolizio special. We went out and wrestled Iowa in a duel in St. Louis. So like right out of the gate, we're showing our guys, here's number one team, here's number two team. Maybe that's changed since then in the rankings, but like for
No, they're
us to
one and
pack,
two still. They're one,
so
two.
so yeah, so to pack that into a 2 3 week period, it gives our guys a measuring stick as to what it takes to be at the top of the game, right? Like we're doing pretty well. We think we have a good team. We think we have a lot of guys like Ben Pazook has kind of showed guys like you can come here and get on the podium at the NCAA tournament. So having Gunner having the opportunity to wrestle Mess and bring in Caliendo, right? Um, those are two pretty good opponents at the beginning of the year. Also 1 and 2, I believe, right? So that's by design. We want our guys to have reps against those guys. And then after that, we settled into the scuffle, and kind of a mixed bag there. You're going to get we saw some Penn State guys there in the finals and in the semifinals, and we saw some Virginia Tech guys, and we saw Oklahoma. So there's a lot of good individual matchups for that there. So by the time we get into Franklin Marshall's always a good one too, but by the time we get into our dual schedule for the EIWA, our guys have had a nice kind of sampler platter of some of the best Big Ten and Big 12 teams in the country, and now we're settled into knocking out the Patriot League schools that we compete against and getting ready for the postseason.
Lucas got to wrestle one of the Marisola twins in the finals, right?
He did, yep.
And then at 97, did you wrestle the other twin?
We did. Yeah, we lost to him in the semis. And then, yeah, we wrestled Sonny Sasso for third place there. So, like good opponents.
So listen, everybody was kind of saying, scuffle, man. Uh, I don't know. The guys we just said right there, we're talking about future multiple time NCAA All-Americans, NCAA champs. I think that
Yeah.
wasn't down as much as people were saying, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. Like we're pretty good at kind of not recognizing that things have changed. So if you're kind of thinking like the heyday of the 90s, or like coaches are coaching differently now. They want their kids to have more time off. It's maybe a little bit different when you're packing your whole career into 4 seasons and some guys are getting 6 seasons now. So maybe you don't have to wrestle over winter break, So I know that people are bemoaning the loss of the marquee matchups at the holiday tournament. And sure, I remember my first stint in Division One wrestling going to the scuffle and you were seeing NCAA final, you were seeing NCAA final matchups at the Southern Scuffle and in the Midlands and stuff like that. But it's different now, and you can only kind of go and compete against the guys that show up. So I think the Scuffle is going to be just fine. We got wins over guys who were All-Americans last year. We got wins over guys who are going to be All-Americans this year NCAA champs. There's plenty of guys that wrestle at the scuffle that are going to wind up winning NCAA titles. So we're just grateful to be able to get there and compete. It's the second year in a row that we kind of went down there, and it's been good to us. It's a really, I'm really happy that they moved it off of like New Year's Day too, right? I think that as that if that date remains firm, I think maybe you'll see some schools start to trickle back in there too.
Okay, so real quick, what is our minimum threshold of Division One matches that you have in order to draw a bid? I know it's not just matches. I know it's your winning percentage, and there's
Yeah.
all these different things, right?
Yep.
Three was it winning percentage, strength of schedule, and minimum threshold? Is it
Well,
14 matches?
15. Yeah,
15.
15.
Okay, it was 17,
Yep.
and it's continued to come kind of about
Yeah.
done. So it's 15, and those have to be Division One matches. They can't be against Gannon. They can't be against Pitt
Correct.
Johnstown, Lake
Yep.
Erie College. You can't. They have to be D1, which I dislike about that because now you've made it almost punish D1s to wrestle D2s or to be at a tournament they're at. So I don't like that
It is. Yep.
necessarily about it. And it is,
Yeah.
you're a guy, you're an honest guy. That's what it is. And then they're gonna be hesitant to duel them, and it kind of. But I get it. I understand what you guys have to
Yeah.
do. What is the full body of work that a wrestler has to do to draw a spot to the Division One championships for their conference?
So they're going to have a good strength of schedule, like you mentioned, that the 15 match threshold to get an RPI. So that's going to be like an algorithm that kind of takes into account their opponent's record and things like that. So that's one of the benchmarks. The other is coaches ranking. So you got to kind of see those when they come out. I think the first one comes out towards the end of the month here. So you have to be in the coaches rankings to hit one of those criteria, and then the other is winning percentage. And those win percentage is based like matches against your teammates don't count. Other division matches don't count. It's only Division One matchups. So, like generally speaking, you're shooting for like a 70% winning percentage. But sometimes that's not enough. We had a guy last year who had a 70% winning percentage, and there were like 28 guys who had like a 73% winning percentage. So that's kind of what you're looking to do. You're looking to get qualified in two, preferably three of those areas, and that gets you the bid that you can take to the conference tournament with you.
So RPI, I believe, is ranking performance index. I want to say that's what that means,
Yeah. Yep.
and that's your strength of schedule. That's who
Yep.
your guys is obviously is certainly not lacking a low
Yeah. No. No.
crappy
Yep.
RPI. It's not going to be that for the West Point Black Knights, but uh, now what we're seeing, like you said, they're wrestling their schedules, and by there I mean everybody that's a Power Four, right? They're wrestling their schedule that's not their conference schedule because you got to wrestle your conference schedule.
Yep.
Those are mandated by your conference. You have
Yep.
a contract year to year, and you have to do those ones based on what your conference hands down to you yearly. Correct?
For sure. Yep.
Okay. They're wrestling their schedule is different, 100%.
Yeah.
They have to, and if they're smart, you got to game how the system works. You hit your threshold of 15. And then obviously there's things unforeseen. Like if you look at Teamer's injured, right? Teamer's out. So I don't know if he's going to draw a spot. So then we get into the area of, and listen, I'm not crying for the Big Ten. I promise you I'm not crying for him. But you're getting to the spot where Teamer now will have to go steal somebody's bid.
Yeah, we'll have it in the IWA too. I mean, there's good athletes now that are banged up that are not going to get that 15 match threshold. Long Island University just got a pretty big impact transfer coming in who won't meet the threshold. Lehigh just had a big impact uh transfer come in that may or may not get a spot, so they're probably going to be coming to the tournament and competing for a spot from someone else who's already qualified it, and that's just the name of the game. There is a wild card system to maybe, give those guys a second chance if they qualify a spot and they don't place in the appropriate place in the conference. And it's as good a system as any. I mean, bottom line is you gotta wrestle well during the year to qualify a spot, and you got to wrestle well at your conference tournament to ensure that you get your bid.
A guy can go into the conference, make weight, not wrestle a match, and then but they have to weigh in at the conference in order to utilize the wild card bid, correct? At large or
Yeah,
wild card, whatever it's called.
they have to compete, I think.
Oh, they
I
do. So
think
they got
they
to go
yeah
and blow the
yeah
whistle, step back, grab
yeah
their knee. I'm done, right?
yeah.
They
I'm
have
not
to
sure
blow
that
the
happened at
whistle, though.
all last year, though. I don't think that happened at all last year.
It
I
has
think like
before, right?
yeah, they think last year some guys got deep into the tournament and might have like forfeited their last match and got a bid, but I don't think we had anybody like step up the scale and pull out of the tournament. And I don't think that happened last year.
But they can do it. They can utilize that. That is at their disposal.
Yep.
Okay. I listen. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think, like you said, it's as good of a system as any.
Yeah.
The D2 and the D3, they got a 1 day qualifier, and if they don't bring it and they're not top three in their region, guess what?
Hmm.
You don't
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
You don't go. And I don't love the D2, D3 NCAA wrestling qualification model. And then some of those regionals, you end up with the NCAA final and the regional semi or the
Yep.
regional final. And it's like, I don't love that either, but I get it, right? Because some of them are crowded and it's geographically where the teams are located and whatever. I get it, but our D1 system is better than those other two.
I think so. I think,
It is.
you have to, there's, I think what the coaches wanted, was the ability to have guys show a body of work that it makes them deserving of going to the NCAA tournament, but at the still time preserve a little bit of the integrity of the qualification at the conference tournament, right? Not necessarily that you can still like you're talking D2, D3, a lot of high school systems. You have a bad day and your season's over, and no matter what you did during the year, that's it. You're not going. And so D1 makes a little bit of an allowance for that, which I think is fair, which I think is good.
Yeah. The okay, so the other thing is everything's changing obviously with how they wrestle their schedule, the match threshold, RPI, drawing a bid. If you can't draw a bid, then you gotta go play. Oh, they got 6 bids in the Big Ten. You gotta take six, right? Right?
Yep.
There's that. They can game it via that. Or if the guy got the 15 matches in, oh, he can make weight. And then he'll get wild carded in, or what do we call? Do we call it wild card, or do we call it at large? I forget.
They're at large
At large.
bids. Yeah.
Okay, so they're at
Yeah.
large. Whatever. We're talking about the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest game changer with all of this and this is huge for you guys. And by you guys, I mean the three academies, because now we have name, image, likeness, and collectives, NIL collectives, right?
Yeah.
They're not really the same
They're
because
not.
name, image, likeness is you can take your name, image, and your likeness and make money off of it. I
Yep.
don't think a lot of people are doing that. I don't think that you have thousands of student athletes doing that. I think you have the Sanders brothers. I think you have the guy that won the Heisman, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
that guy, and then obviously there's a handful of other football players, basketball players, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think wrestlers are necessarily doing name, image like this. I think the collective is how wrestlers are getting paid. Would you like to
Yeah.
delve into that a little?
Here's how I've been kind of handling that. I kind of think back to when COVID hit, right? And like you're trying to get a handle on what's going on, and it just changed every day, right? So like what you thought you knew on Tuesday was completely different on Thursday. And I kind of look at this as the same thing. There's more questions than answers. Now the latest thing is potentially making athletes employees, which is different than NIL and different than collectives, right? So uh, it's tough to keep track of that, and it could be by next week we might. I just saw something that the Department of Education and Title IX are getting involved now, right? And they're saying, hey, like. You're going to do all these payouts. Those are still benefits that are being received from the school. So now they have to be equitable and fair. So I think there's a lot more to be hammered out before we have a clear understanding of what's going on. And quite honestly, I'm glad we don't really have to deal with it at West Point at all. But it's something we have to be educated about, right? Because we're going to be competing for kids who are having those words whispered in their ears by other schools. So there's no question that it's going to be a new ball game as this all evolves, right? There's some the house settlement has to happen and see when that's actually going to be, handed down and agreed upon. And then, like I said, the latest one is a lot of people are saying, hey, it's better to just pay people as employees of the school. But then you're talking about a whole different can of worms that are going to be open if that happens. So I think there's more questions than answers right now. I think it's something that's almost like buckle up, right? And we are definitely, from a coaching standpoint, building the plane as we're flying it, um, especially with wrestling.
Definitely. And then the biggest one I heard was they don't even have to give guys money anymore, like scholarship money or books or room and
Mhm.
board or tuition. They're literally just paying them.
Mhm.
And I heard guys don't even have to transfer now. They can just leave the school they're at. This is crazy. This one I heard is wild. They graduated, right?
Yep.
And they literally went, applied, got
Yeah.
the bag, and just showed up and tried out for the team.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
not
that
gonna
can
let.
happen.
I mean, I'll tell you
That-
off camera what one it is. Like you probably already know.
No, I know. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That's literally. Did you hear the same story that
for sure.
they
No,
literally just graduated, rolled out, showed up, had all the money, and then they just paid for everything.
that's the way to circumvent the transfer portal for sure.
Yeah, there's no portal even that even didn't even matter. No
Yeah.
portal. They showed up. They applied to school, got accepted, tried
Yep.
out for the team, which they were getting paid six figures to try out for, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're they're there.
Yeah.
That was a wild one. When I heard that one, I was like, no way. But it makes sense because there's not a rule against that.
All right.
But you guys, okay, so let's get back to the service academy. Let's get back to West Point, right? Um, you're the oldest of the three traditional service academies, correct?
Yep. Hmm.
At
1802.
18.
1802.
Okay. So when we talk Army West Point, I don't know if people are totally familiar with the admissions process or an appointment, or if you can't get admission, they don't know anything about the prep school route. There's just
Yep.
so many things about Army West Point that people don't know, right? I teach career class. I start talking about the academies.
Yeah.
These kids have no idea what I'm talking about.
For
They're
sure. Yeah.
like, wait, what? You joined the army? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I got a buddy who he got a GED and he joined the army. I'm like, no, no, that's not what this is. No,
Right.
you have to be well-rounded, everything. It's really difficult to get through your appointment process. You have to be the real deal as a human being. If you're a student athlete, because obviously you have people that aren't student athletes,
Yeah.
and then obviously the academic part is such a huge part of it, right?
Yeah.
That academic aspect is obviously you cannot not be an academic strong person and go to Army West Point. It's just not a thing.
Right.
So talk to me about the process and why NILs and collectives don't matter to you guys and transfers for that. Transfers in at least, right?
Yeah.
Transfers out are a thing within the first 2 years,
Yep.
but transfers in are not a thing at you any of the service academies, Army West Point, correct?
They could be, but they're rare, right?
Very
You
rare.
you can transfer to West Point. You're going to start over though. None of your credits are going to transfer, and you're going to do 4 years.
Gotcha.
So it happens, but usually not athletically related. So essentially, what you're looking at West Point, and the reason that we're going to be able to kind of function the way that we always have. And the reason that our football team continues to have some success this year, and our lacrosse team last year was like ranked number one in the country. Like the reason that athletics are are growing and successful at West Point is that everyone that comes here is on a full ride. It's the only type of scholarship that we deal with, right? So I never, ever, ever have to talk money with a recruit. Not once. It will not come up at all. You're coming here, your education is paid for. And not only that, you are going to get paid while you're here. So back before collectives were a thing, back before NIL was a thing, Army West Point was paying cadets. And they're not just paying their cadet athletes, they're paying everybody who's here, right? All 4,400 cadets are getting a paycheck every month. So that allows us to function the same way we always have, because that's not a conversation that we have to really worry about. I mean, obviously, there are still going to be there are Division One coaches that are calling our wrestlers right now. I mean, 100% that are freshmen and sophomores and saying, "Hey, like we can maybe pay you more than West Point is," or stuff like that. Um, but they're doing it through a proxy, but they're in contact with our guys. We know that. So there's always a risk of that, but I think when you sign up for an academy, you're probably pretty special kind of person. And the fact that you are part of a team, and a team that's a little bigger than your wrestling team, a team that is really kind of important in a larger context than just college athletics. I think that we're an advantage there. I think football saw that. They were in a conference this year, and every team they played had like 20-30% turnover in their roster from the year before, because kids that were doing well at the North Texases or the Florida Atlantics or whatever, they were getting, NILs from Power Five conferences. And then, the kids who maybe were riding the bench at Ohio State are transferred. There's so much turnover in those schools. Um, and we don't have that. We have a good core of kids. College athletics, I mean, obviously, I'm biased as it was intended, as a supplement to a student athlete's education, still exists here at West Point. So our roster has very, very little turnover. Like you said, there's not a lot of people that are transferring in. There's none, so, and not a lot of people transferring out either. So to be able to build that cohesive team and some consistency in your lineup and consistency in your training without having to, you know, our kids don't come in after being here for 3 years in August and sit down and look down at the end of the bench and see someone who they know just getting paid $500,000 for 4 months on the team. They never have to worry about that. They're going to graduate with the guys that they came in with. So we're fortunate. A lot of people would paint that as a negative. You can't, get offer kids the bag. You can't get transfers in to fill a lineup spot. So those would be the disadvantages to it, but we kind of view it through the lens of this being a tremendous positive for us. That if you're looking for an experience that puts you in a situation where you're something that's a little bigger than yourself, and you want to be on a team that sees that the world that way too, this is a place for you. And guess what? It's free. You're gonna come here, you're gonna pay it back in service, but it's free, and you're not gonna pay a dime, and you're gonna be set up financially moving forward. So we're 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 very, very comfortable with what we have to offer and where we are in the ever-changing world of college athletics.
Okay, so say is there any barrier at all? Because I looked at Navy, and Navy has like a $6,000 to $8,000 like entry barrier. If you can't come up with I don't know if do you guys have an entry barrier like they have an entry barrier about
Nope.
uniforms or it's something. There's like a barrier to get in.
No, I'm unfamiliar with that. Our guys' uniforms come out of their paycheck.
So
There's
it
like
comes
a
out. Okay, so
yeah,
anything that there is a barrier or anything that's paid, it would just come out of your pay,
yeah, yep,
which you're making, and it's your money, and it goes right into a bank account. You can manage it all on
100%.
your phone and do whatever you want, or get
Yep,
all the money out every month and stuff it in your pillow. Whatever you want to do, whatever you can do,
sure,
you're
yeah,
free to do
yeah,
that. So, okay,
yeah.
it's
Our guys spend it
terrible.
at Grand Hall, which is the eatery on campus. So they're over there ordering breakfast sandwiches with their paycheck. So
I love it. And then all the benefits when they leave. Here's the other thing. Here's one thing that I did learn: the 4 years in the academy in West Point do not count towards enlisted retirement years. That's
Right.
correct, right?
Correct. Yep. The prep
That
school
was the
year would.
only drawback I've ever found, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Like, when
Yeah.
I sit here and I mull it over, and I got two sons, and I'm like, oh, I want them to go there. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
literally the only drawback I could ever even think of.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't have another drawback. I just
No.
don't.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on wrapping your head around service, right? And what kind of direction you want to go as far as that goes. There's 17 different branches of the Army that West Point provides second lieutenants for. So, a lot of our guys, they want to do the badass stuff, right? They want to go and kill bad guys with their best friends, right? So they're going to join the infantry and go do that if that's what they wish to do. But there's West Point grads in the top of every field outside of the Army. The owner of the Florida Panthers is a West Point grad. The chief financial officer of the Atlanta Falcons is a West Point grad. The owner of the Vegas Golden Knights, West Point grad. Like medicine, law, it doesn't matter what it is. You're going to find West Point grads at the top of that field. So if you're limiting yourself to saying, hey, I don't want to be in the Army for 20 years, so you don't have to be. And if you're limiting yourself and saying, I don't want a career in the military, a lot of people are using West Point as a stepping stone to get, a great experience, a world-class education, and then take those skills to be top of their field in areas outside of the military, for sure, in the civilian world.
Douglas MacArthur, West Point grad. George S. Patton, West Point grad. Dwight David Eisenhower, West Point grad.
Yep.
It's so
Nah,
ridiculous, dude. Oh, hold on. There's more. There's more. I like this. This is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite things to do. I like just kind of going through here and like Buzz Aldrin.
for sure. Yeah. Yep.
It's so crazy, dude. There's another one that's like wild. I was like, no way, that guy's a West Point grad. Ben Pasuk.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
That's
I mean, if we
a
can't
good one,
mention
man.
Ben Pazuke with the MacArthurs and Pattons of the world,
Sure, I
then
would.
then
I
then
would.
what are we really doing?
Mike Pompeo.
Sure. Yep. Hmm.
Um, geez, oh Pete is that is no Robert E. Lee is not a West Point grad, is he?
He is. Yep.
He's a West. He's like one of the greatest military tacticians of all time, right? Like history of Earth, right?
Yeah.
Real thing.
So Civil War. So West Point forms in 1802. Civil War breaks out 1860, 58 years later. Pretty much every officer on both sides of that conflict were West Point grads, because that's what's training our military leadership up until then.
Schwarzkopf, Norman Schwarzkopf.
Hmm.
I love it. I'm just like looking. I'm just scrolling through it. It's
Yeah.
like so awesome, man. It's such. It's hallowed grounds, is what I would call it, man. It's just such a
Not a not a grad, but Edgar Allan Poe attended West Point.
Edgar Allan Poe. That's right.
Hmm.
John J. Pershing.
Sure. Yep.
Oh, okay. Wow,
Yep.
dude. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, oh, there's a DuPont. I did not know that. I'm guessing that's a DuPont too.
Yeah.
George Custer.
Custer is buried here.
No way.
Yep.
George McClellan. Oh my, U.S. Grant.
Yep.
Gee, dude, there's William Tecumseh Sherman. Wow, dude, this is like super. Like these are some of these I did not know actually.
Yeah.
I,
I mean, like if you can pretty much assume if they were a general in the 19th century that they attended West Point,
it's
or an
kind of the
officer.
deal. It's kind of the
Yeah.
deal.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it just it blows my mind. When did Robert E. Lee? When did he graduate? I'm looking for his graduation year. Yeah, Robert E. Lee, what a freak! Oh my God. Okay. So backdoor or not? I shouldn't say backdoor. Alternative acceptance to Army West Point if you're unable to gain an appointment from a congressman or woman. Um, what are other ways that you can gain an appointment to Army West Point?
So,
Admission, appointment, delayed enrollment.
yep.
I don't know what you call it.
So basically, the way that it works is when you apply to West Point, there's three different outcomes. Um, One is they're like, no way, you ain't coming, right? That's not working. Doesn't matter if you're a recruited athlete. There's just no shot, right? The other way is, second way is to get into West Point directly. You graduate from high school and you are tremendously qualified and you report to West Point in July, and you're a plebe that year. So we have kids like that on our team, who have come in directly and excelled as cadets and at West Point. And then the third way is to come in through our prep school, which is right on campus. And generally speaking, that's someone who needs a year of, I mean, this makes sense, right? He needs a year of prep, academically to meet the standards, and the admissions believe that if he has that year of prep, he'll be a successful cadet. So 75% of our recruits come in through our prep school. Um, we will identify them and work with them through the application process, which is the same as if you're coming in direct, and they will get to experience West Point a year after high school, after they complete their year at prep. So that's, I mean, obviously, selfishly as a wrestling coach, that's awesome if everyone could go to prep, because it gets them what amounts to a redshirt year, where they're coming in, they're training. Coach Brees runs that program up there. He's the coach at the prep school. And all those kids are in the West Point Wrestling Club, so in the RTC, so we get the benefit of having them train, in the off season with us pretty much full time. Um, Now, if a kid's fully qualified, and we try to sneak him into the prep school to get him that redshirt year, West Point's just going to laugh and say, no, no, this isn't like an athletic redshirt. This is to prepare them academically for West Point. So if you're coming to me and you got a 1400 on your SAT and a 4.0, and you're like, oh, I really, really want to go to prep, I'm going to say, yeah, there's no shot, right? That we don't get to use it as a place to hide a kid for a year because we want him to get better at wrestling. You're probably coming in directly.
Can they do
So,
a gap year and avoid that and take their own gray shirt year?
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So they could do that, and they would have to. What they would do is they would then in their post PG year,
Yeah.
then they would apply
Sure.
for West
Yep.
Point if they could get it. Now, in the scenario where a PG post grad doesn't get in, maybe they would have got in the year before, but they punted to the next year. Can they then, as a post grad, get into the prep school? Is that a thing?
Could happen. That's happened. Yeah.
Happen. Okay.
Um,
I just wanted, I mean, like if it's not
More
a
than
one or not.
likely, I wouldn't recommend a kid. I wouldn't recommend a kid do a gap year unless I was pretty sure that I could get him a slot after that. I would be honest with him, and say, hey, like we have kids 17, really, really scrawny, 1400 on the SAT, 4.0, already took Calc AB, BC. But he's like, I'm not ready for college wrestling. And I said, all right, well, here are your options. But you're coming in as a direct admit the next year and it's going to work out. You know what I mean? So I think like he's doing a postgraduate year now. So it's not like we're just kind of kicking them to the curb and saying, "Well, good luck next year." We're guiding them through that and saying, "Hey, if that's what you really want, here are your options." But we're confident that you're going to be one of our chips, one of our guys that we're going to advocate for. We wouldn't send a kid out there on his own, unless he really, really was like, "Hey, you know, um, I'm ready to let it ride. And you're going to want me next year." Then we'd be like, okay. But more often than not, if a kid does a year like a gap year, it's under our guidance, and we're telling them, hey, if that's what you really want, we're still going to advocate for you as a incoming plebe moving forward.
So, in the event that a kid doesn't get in, we're running into. You said we're flying the plane. We're building the plane as we're flying it, right?
Yep.
Are you gonna go to the 30-man roster, and are you guys gonna have to make a year of prep school and make everybody else do RTC, or are you guys going to still have a roster that you want to have? How is that going to work? Is that going to affect you? Or they're going to make you guys declare Yeah, we're gonna have a 30-man roster. No, we don't. Is that going to affect West Point?
It's my belief that it will not, that we will be able to
We,
maintain
we don't
our
know. I know we don't know. I'm not. I mean,
yeah,
I know I'm not asking for a definitive because nothing's definite right at this point. I want to give a disclaimer before that guy said no. We don't know, right? We don't
right.
even know fully what that looks like, right? To like give you a little bit of like leeway with that. We just
Yeah.
don't know yet, right?
Everything I've been told is that we will not have a roster cap, thus far. So I mean, we're anticipating carrying our 50 man-ish roster, big one of the biggest rosters in the country, the same as we have moving forward.
Okay, 50-man roster shouldn't affect you. Everybody's on a full ride. What do they
Yep.
have to do? We keep saying the full ride, the full ride, the full ride. But like you said, you got to pay with service. What
Yep.
does service look like after you graduate from Army West Point as an officer?
So you graduate, you walk across the stage, you get your diploma from the president of the United States, or vice president, whoever it is that day on that rotation. They hand you your diploma, you get a little bit of leave, and then a couple weeks later, you report into your leadership uh, course as a second lieutenant in the United States Army, and you owe 5 years of active duty. You'll probably do two or three different posts. You'll probably be two or three different places in that 5 years. You probably will get promoted a couple times. You get an increase in your paycheck. You will learn to lead. If you're planning on taking it into the civilian world, consider that a 5 year paid internship where you're learning leadership skills, and you at 27 has led a platoon of soldiers, while your counterpart at 27 is still trying to figure out how to pay their grad school bills, you know? And like I said before, you take it into the field that you want to, right? You're going to have a major from West Point, and that might be engineering, or it might be, you know, Portuguese. It could be a variety of different things. We have just about every major that any school would offer. But your branch is going to be maybe a little bit of a different skill set. So I mentioned infantry before. You could branch engineering, you could branch medical services, and that's going to dictate what your service looks like for those 5 years, is what branch you elect to go into.
4,400 uh, West Point Army Black Knights on the campus at one
Yep,
time.
yep,
1,100 a graduating class roughly
yep,
and about and
yep,
then it's at each class it's usually right at the same, right? 1,100 is what you bring in.
yeah.
Obviously they're really strict on that, how they're doing that. Do you have slots? What do
Yep.
you know you have what you have to work with? So for example, if you know the Ivy League model, right? The Ivy League model is, let's just say Penn. Oh, we're gonna give you eight opportunities, slot, whatever you want to call it, right? It's
Yep.
positions. I don't know what they call them, right?
Yeah.
You got eight of them. You got to go get a guy with a what's the highest ACT score? 1,600 SAT.
ACT would be
That's it.
36,
36,
1600, I'd say too. Yeah.
1,600. So 1,600. You got to go get a guy with a 1,550. You go get a guy with a 1,210. You got to go get a guy with a 1,550. You have to offset those in the Ivy
Yeah.
League. Is my understanding.
Yes, in the Ivy
That's how
League.
what I'm saying is
Yeah.
what the Ivy
Hmm.
League has to do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm better with the ACT system, right? You want a guy with a 25 into your school, you got to go get a 36 and a 35 to counter balance that person, correct?
Yeah, that's through their academic index and things like that. Yeah. No,
It's
that's their
essentially
model.
that. And
Yep.
then, of course, they're paying to go there, but it's all need based and whatever with the Ivies because we're talking about West Point. But do you have slots like they have, or how does that work? And what do you know what you have to work with year to year?
We have slots. They don't work like that. You don't have to balance or counterbalance. They have to meet the standards. We have what is called the SEER score, which is an algorithm of their GPA, their test scores, their score on the cadet fitness assessment. I could tell you how to figure it out, but it's top secret, you know. There's based on that, and there's like minimum scores for um direct admission to West Point, and it's all based on that score. And then there's minimum scores for admission to the prep school, and there's maximum scores to the admission to the prep school. So basically, the way that it works out is we have 10 slots at our prep school every year. Um, so we can go and recruit 10 kids who are going to meet the prep school standards. And we can walk them through the admissions process. And that's a pretty solid number that we're going to get 10 kids into the prep school every year. Um, Direct admit is a little more flexible. Some years we might bring in 3 kids. Some years we might bring in 5 kids to the prep school to the direct admissions. So that's a little bit more, some fluidity there. So, I think there is a year we brought in 3, and then most years we'll bring in like 4 or 5. And then we'll have a couple kids randomly who will win their district nomination and be the top guy, and they'll get in on their own. And they're pretty decent wrestlers. So there's someone like that that can fill another slide. That's why our roster is so big, right? Because you're going to have 10 kids coming from the prep school. Every year you're going to have 3 or 4 direct admits, and then you're going to have the random kid who's just got a 1500 on the SAT and a 4.0, and he's coming to West Point whether he wrestles or not. So yeah, that's kind of the way that it works. So we have a lot of slots,
And the
and
ones
a
who
lot of
get the
opportunities.
who get the district nomination, they like
Yep.
literally a person will go through, they'll know the district, people will advocate for that kid. Hey, this kid deserves a slot. And then my guy here, let's just say like Dave Joyce, right? Dave
Yeah,
Joyce is the Congress member here. He gets appointments to all 3 academies, maybe
he
even
does.
the Coast Guard, right?
Yeah.
Coast Guard too, right? Um,
And Merchant Marine.
Merchant,
So all
yeah, yeah,
5.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So he gets appointments to all the academies that are hooked into the United States federal government,
Yep.
and he can give them out accordingly.
Yeah.
And if they don't have to take them, they can go to Kent State or Cleveland State or
Make
Youngstown
him.
State, right? But I mean, I had a buddy, my friend Pat Kane, he's the principal at Norwalk High School. He got appointments to a couple of the academies. He
Hmm.
went to Bowling Green State University.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, just because you get the appointment doesn't mean you're going. And there's more than one. Like, they what they'll do with nominations is they'll submit a bunch of them to us. It's not like they just say this is the only one. Now there is a thing called a preferred nomination. That means like that's the person that's going. But like a district will send their nomination slate over, and then we can, not we wrestling, but like at the higher level of admissions can look at that and see the SEER scores and things like that, and pick who the best candidate is. But yeah, all our kids go through that process too. All our wrestlers will get nominations to come here as well.
The Stoddard did a prep school year, right?
He did.
He did a prep
Yep.
school year. Pasuk prep school year, or did he come right in?
Prep school year.
Prep school year. So he did 5. Um, and I'm obviously partial to my Ohio guys. I pay attention to my interview. I talk to them to the win state titles. They means a lot to me. What did Ben Pasuk mean to Army West Point wrestling? He was your first All American since like '09 or '08,
Yeah. Hmm.
right?
Well,
What did
before I
he,
talk about Ben, I'm going to point out Austin Kohlhofer direct admit.
he was a direct
So
admit.
he was a direct admit, very smart kid. Yeah.
Wow, Cole
Yeah.
offer. I didn't know he was a
Yeah.
genius
Yep.
like that.
Yeah, and then even going back a little further, like Elaine Peters was a great cadet here. And
Claymont
and
guy.
and so yeah, we got a lot of Ohio tradition here. But listen, so like with Ben, there's 2 things that stand out to me about Ben Pazuk and his career here is that he was good right out of the gate. And I think that is a testament to our ability to recruit and develop talent because he wasn't a guy who was on Willie's big board, or who placed at the Ironman 4 times. But he got here, he went to our prep school, and then he was in the finals of the IWA tournament as a freshman, 4-time NCAA qualifier, Southern Scuffle champion, like just didn't didn't really kind of miss a beat coming here being a 1-time Ohio State champ. and no national pedigree or accolades at all. Just came in as a talented kid who was identified by Coach Shuck, before me. As a kid who, hey man, this is under the radar kid. He wasn't getting his door knocked down for offers, and just came here and believed in the way that we train, and believed in himself, and was able to get to the podium. But not just like look, if Ben loses in the round of 12, is his career any less significant? No, I mean like kids like a four-time qualifier, right? And so it's great that he made the podium. But he had a really, really great career outside of that All-American finish, right? Um, so the ability to develop while you're here. Like there are kids that Ben Pazook beat in college that he would not have dreamed of beating back at Carleton High School. You know what I mean? So I think that's a really, really good indication of what's possible when you get here. Now, for the program, him getting on the podium is validation, right? For the fans, for people to say when I'm in their living room, like, hey, there's another coach that's maybe telling you, hey man, you just got to do too much military stuff while you're there. You can't be a successful wrestler. I can just point to Ben now because he did what they want to do. I can point to Lucas Stoddard, Charlie Farmer because people are always being told, well, you're not going to be able to wrestle in the summer because you're going to be doing military stuff. Well, guess what? I was in Columbia with them in the middle of the summer, while they were winning, Pan Am gold medals. So I think those things, it makes it easier for me as a recruiter to answer those questions when people are asking them because they're not getting the right information. They either don't know or they're getting, negative information. That kind of we needed those performances to dispel those rumors or to dispel those myths because as much as I can tell someone you can be an All-American here, having an All-American is a lot easier to formulate that idea in their head. As much as I tell someone you can make a world team while you're here, having Lucas do it is obviously much more proof positive that those things are possible. And just thanking the great state of Ohio for really kind of feeding us a world team member and an All-American within a few months of each other. That's pretty awesome. Makes you as an Ohio fan very, very proud, I would hope.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you hear me talk about Army West Point, man. I'm like, if I could get one of my kids to go there, I mean, absolutely, I'd be on board, right? Might have to go to war and a little battle with the wife. Don't know if
Yeah.
that's what she wants, right? Ann Arbor, I mean,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing
Yeah.
she wants Michigan. I understand that. Or we met at Kent State, but I understand that, right? But like, there's what's the downside? What's the
Every
downside?
dad in the country that comes on a visit, like if we were just signing up dads, we'd be number one team in the country. Like we'd have the
Signing
best team.
dads up, huh?
Yeah. And mom, really what it takes is two things. One, it takes a visit to campus because they can't conceptualize it otherwise. When they get here, it starts to turn, and then they see their baby boy in uniform. Oh, they just melt. Then they get it. So yeah.
You and I like to laugh a lot.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm a fan of comedy, but
Yep.
I don't know if you're a fan of Shane Gillis.
Kind of familiar,
Okay,
but
okay.
not well versed.
Do you know who he is?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay. Shane Gillis got into West Point
Okay,
except direct, like what Cole
okay,
Hoffer did. He got in, he
yeah,
was on West Point's football team.
okay.
I just dude, you gotta go listen to this guy talk about getting into West Point as he was an offensive like lineman,
Hmm.
and then he just partied and drank all summer, didn't do any of the stuff they asked him to do.
Yeah,
And then he showed up, and when do you show up? July?
yeah,
Show up in July, and he'd gained 40 pounds. He's
right.
out of shape, and I think he made it 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah. No, that happens for sure.
He
Yeah,
made it 2 weeks because I don't think people are ready for the experience.
yeah,
I think they're so shocked. And you're
yeah.
like, this guy, you're a total clown and a goofball. Um, it's just not for you, right? He probably went there for somebody else, or it was his only D1 offer. That's the bit,
Yeah.
or he didn't want to go to
Yeah, so it's called
Temple or
Beasts.
Eastern Michigan or whatever.
The summer is called Beasts. It's their version of basic training for cadets. And like honestly, for like a in shape Division 1 wrestler, it's not challenging at all.
That's
Um, they're
easy means
like,
nothing
yeah,
for them.
what are we going camping? But for other people, other
Yes,
people, it's a grind. It's the only college orientation where you might get trench foot. Like that's not happening in other college orientations. So
why not?
100%.
But
And I,
okay,
yeah,
Corey Shy. Corey Shy is another
yeah,
Black
no,
Knight from
Corey, yeah,
Ohio, right?
yeah. Corey went to LaSalle. Yeah, he's a 4-year guy here. Yeah, 100%. Look great. Dom Carone. I mean, like, there's a bunch of them.
Love it.
Eli Pack is on our team now. He wound up going to Culver to boarding school, but he's an Ohio guy.
He's
Yeah,
from Columbus, I think.
yeah,
Columbus area. Okay, so when we talk about this, I just like people just don't know anything about West Point. I mean,
yeah,
it's wild to me they know West Point, but they know nothing about the admissions process. They
right.
know nothing about what it takes as far as how the slots work. They don't understand the prep school. Your prep school's right on your campus,
It
right?
is. Yeah,
Yeah, and Navy's got a weird deal. They're down in Annapolis, Maryland. Their prep school's up in Newport, Rhode Island.
it is. Yep,
And then Air Force Academies is on the campus, but like 4 or 5 miles away.
correct.
Like if
Yep,
you went and you were like, we're gonna hike or pump, whatever they call it, from the prep school at Air Force to Air Force Academy's campus, you could get eaten by a mountain lion. Not making it up.
right.
Real
No,
thing,
true.
not making it up. That's a
Less
thing.
than a mile. Less than a mile for us.
Okay,
Easy.
so yours is all right there. It's all self-contained. Jeff Breeze he's the head coach for the prep school, and then Coach Ward. Right now,
Yep.
what's staff look like? Kevin Ward's your head coach. Give
Yep.
me the rest of the
Well,
staff. You're the associate head coach, Scott Green.
yep.
Who else do we got?
We got Steve Blyce, Minnesota grad.
Michigan kid.
Cook, Michigan kid. Yep, for sure. Just coming to us from Cal State Bakersfield. Bringing energy every day. Blyce is a wild man. Second year with the program, really just the energy that we needed, to come in and raise the level of the room by wrestling with the guys, but also just he is on 10 all the time, And then this year we got Taylor Lamont, All-American at UVU, finished up at Wisconsin. Taylor, a bunch of trips that I coached internationally. So known him since he was a kid, and just a great asset for our lightweights. And so that's our four. And then plus Breezy up there. Got a bunch of other people, like just in terms of RTC athletes and assistant coaches at the prep school. We got Johnny Stramiello, Fabian Gutierrez. Our girls, Valerie Baker, Sophia Macaluso. We got Big Mike Rogers, who's a Greco guy, working with Lucas and Brady and Kohlhofer and those guys. He wrestled for me at Wyoming Seminary, so he's been on a couple world teams from a Greco standpoint. So just a really good situation with some, ecosystem of wrestling in the area too.
Speaking of Wyoming Seminary, I sent you a video the other day of the bank
Yep.
wrestling room. Were you the person who got them into the bank and repurposed the
Yeah.
bank and that was you? You did that.
Yeah, it was kind of a performing arts center before that, and they were building a multi-million-dollar performing arts center on campus there. So I looked over and walked over there with a couple of the administrators at the time, and they're like, "Well, okay, it's a big open space, but how much is it going to cost? Like, what do we need to make it into a wrestling room?" And I was like, "Just buy me mats. Like, we'll just roll them out, you know? Like, we don't need to do a whole bunch of retrofitting or anything like that. Just roll out 2 mats and we're good to go, you know?"
What
So,
a space! What a
yeah,
space! And a lot of the old stuff from the ticket booth and the
yeah,
stage and all that stuff's still there. That's really cool. I've
sure.
actually never been. but
Hmm.
the video I watched was pretty good, and they did a
Yeah.
pretty good job of showing it. And there's two vaults, right?
Vault's safe. They're chained open so that you don't lock a kid in there accidentally. But it's pretty
Uh,
special building. It's pretty awesome. To have that space, and I'm sure C Rob is doing a good job, continuing the special tradition that John Gordon started at Wyoming Seminary, and I was able to carry on for a few years, and it's an area that benefits from a strong program, and it's good to see them getting some pub for the Great Hall.
it's crazy to me to see the team that they put together last year
Yep.
and how many champs and finalists and what they did at the preps and how the records they broke. How many guys were guys you recruited that were on the team last year as seniors that were
Yeah.
a part of that team? Were there any leftovers from Sky
Yep.
Creek?
So this year's seniors, I got the Army job in like right around Fargo time. So this year's seniors are the last group of kids that I recruited. So Jude Correa, Chewy Botello, those guys I never coached them because I left before they entered. But that's the last kind of group of seniors that I was associated with. So I don't really know. There's a couple little brothers on the team of kids that I had, but for the most part, I don't know anyone juniors and down. I know them, who they are as wrestlers and stuff like that, but or other relationships with them, but they had no association with me. And this year's seniors never competed for me. The seniors last year were kids that wrestled for me while I was there in some capacity.
So
So yeah, that's
Lilladal came over with Cornell.
those are different. Yeah, like obviously like Luke and Dara and some other kids that came in were Cornell recruits, that came with Cornell. So it's not 100%, rate, but a lot of those kids like Dom Davis, those kids were middle schoolers when I was at SEM that were local kids. So yeah, I mean, like there's crossover there, but obviously a lot of those kids like Nathan Desmond came in as juniors, didn't really know much about him, but they were added to that team and they were great, man. I mean, like the way that they dominated national preps is tough to visualize a team doing that anywhere, let alone the national prep tournament with Blair and Lake Island Prep and Malvern and all the good teams that are associated with it. So that was a heck of a run for them for sure.
How different is your life now from being the head coach and a teacher, an English teacher at Wyoming Seminary, a private boarding school in northeast central Pennsylvania? I guess maybe I said that right. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but what is that like? How much different is your life from, right, the Wyoming Valley? Did I get that?
Yeah.
From the Wyoming Valley private boarding school to the United States Military Academy at West Point. How different are those two things? You're not a teacher anymore. You
Right.
are, okay, but you're not in
No.
classes with lesson plans and giving grades. Okay,
Yeah,
right? How
for
much
sure.
different are those two things?
Tremendously different. I can go weeks here without talking to anybody besides a wrestler and a wrestling coach if I want to. So that's pretty cool. I have to talk to my wife, but other than that, like I can talk to just wrestling people. And at Wyoming Seminary, you are immersed in a community where you are dealing with teachers, administrators, parents, like all of those things, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. You're always on, you're living on a campus where your kids live too, and your wrestlers live. So there's some challenges that are associated with that. You're grading papers, you're working in admissions office, like you're doing all sorts of different things every day, and you need to keep that skill set sharp to deal with different types of people all the time. Um, Here, I go to practice, I recruit, I go to lifts, I go to events. You are a wrestling coach, you're a full-time wrestling coach. So that's a little bit, it's tremendously different, right? And then the age of the kids is, I think, requires different from you too, you know? Well, I mean, seminary, you got a 14-year-old kid who's moving to live in a dormitory without his parents. That's different than what you're providing for a 22-year-old senior here at West Point who's getting ready to go into a job as a second lieutenant. So, enjoyed them both for sure. Miss being in the classroom, miss teaching. Don't necessarily miss teachers, but I do miss teaching. So that's something that I have to kind of find ways to fill the void of sometimes. But yeah, I mean, being a head coach and an assistant coach is different too, right? You know, Coach Ward makes the decisions around here, and my suggestions don't necessarily have consequences. So that's kind of fun to be in that role after having been ahead of a a pretty significant boarding school number one type team in the country for over a decade. Uh, that's fun to be the guy who works one on one with the kids more instead of worry about the overall running of the program, you know? So it's totally different. And it's right where I want to be right now. So it's perfect.
How much longer can you do what you do at such a high level, recruit, be in the wrestling room every day? How much longer can you do this?
Forever. I hope, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that I can't see myself doing anything else right now, right? So I think we're on an upward trajectory, and I don't see any reason why that would not change. We're going to continue to do that. So I mean, um, I don't really. Charlie Farmer, our 25 pounder, was like, "What would you do if you retired anyway? You'd go to wrestling tournaments and think about wrestling all day. So why would you ever retire?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, you got a good point, right?" You know, my life wouldn't be any different. So no, I mean, I think that as long as what I'm saying to families is still resonating, and that's easy to do when you're talking about West Point, I can continue to recruit at a high level. And as long as kids continue to respect you and trust you, then you can continue to coach at a high level. So let's go, right? Am I going to be going and showing kids high crotches or going 1 minute goes with kids, Lucas Stoddard, tomorrow? Absolutely not. That would be the key to getting out of coaching is if I had to do anything like that. But coaching's bigger than that nowadays, and the niche that I can continue to contribute at. I don't see it going anywhere. So I'm in. I'm in.
All right. You are a guy with some strong opinions, right? And you put one out recently about
Yep.
some people call them the Gold Domers. You guys played them in football at the Yankee Stadium this year. The West Point Black Knights played the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at Yankee Stadium. They beat you guys. They're
Yep.
good, right? And they lost to Northern Illinois. I don't know if you know that,
I do
but
know that. Yeah.
they're in the national championship game. But um, for lack of a better term, they had an endowment for the sport of wrestling in the late '80s that was donated by a donor.
Yep.
Okay, and my understanding was when the donor passed, then money was then rerouted, and the sport of wrestling was cut from the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana, was then redirected to the football program. Did I get that right? And was that the gist of what you said?
Yep. I mean, like, there's probably I don't know if dollar for dollar it went from the wrestling to football. I'm sure there were other areas that it got spread around too as well, but for the most part, yeah, you got it right. Like Bucky O'Connor had an endowment to support the wrestling team after he passed away. That was rerouted to other places, and the wrestling program was cut. Yeah, 100%.
In the name of Title IX gender equity and leveling the playing field for the amount of male and female athletes, correct? Is that my understanding of that as well.
I
What they
think that's
said.
that. I don't think that's completely accurate. I think that's a convenient scapegoat.
No, 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 yeah,
Um,
yeah, I understand that, but
yeah.
that's what you will hear a lot of the time when an Olympic sport is cut.
Yep.
That's a
Hmm.
Title IX issue.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, okay. I want to make you and you caught a little blowback. Did you have to get in on anybody? Did you have to get in there and
It's
let
great.
us know?
I heard some of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. There's one guy who was like, "Well, Coach Green, like he's putting this out there about Notre Dame, like that's going to affect Army recruiting." And in my head, I'm like reading it, and I'm
Stop
like,
it!
"This guy loves
Stop
Notre
it!
Dame. This guy loves Notre Dame so much that he's made this up in his head that me stating a true opinion about Notre Dame is going to like the kid, the 18-year-old wrestler that I call is going to be like, well, I'm really interested in Army, but you said something bad about Notre Dame, so I'm not going to go there now. I'm not going to go to Army. And I'm like in my head reading that, and like these people are delusional. Another guy on Twitter was like, you better be careful, and you should look up defamation in the Google because Notre Dame could come and sue you. And in my head, I'm like I get the love for like your alma mater if that's it, or I mean maybe you're a little bit Irish and you really like Notre Dame gear, but I'm like none of those things are going to happen because I reminded people what Notre Dame did to wrestling. Like that's such a leap. Like just say, man, you're mad because I made fun of Notre Dame or made fun of you. Maybe you felt embarrassed. But here's where I'm going with that one, and I was going to tweet this, but I'll give it to you first as the game comes up. I am willing to forgive all the Notre Dame fans that want to root for Notre Dame. I'm going to offer them absolution. They can root for whoever they want in the national championship game without guilt. If that's what you want to do, you're all in, and I forgive you. Even though it's tough for me to watch you say you love wrestling and root for a team that murdered wrestling at their institution, I'm going to forgive you and allow you to root for whoever you want to. So if that message gets out through this podcast, and then and you're watching right now and you want to root for the Irish, you are permitted by me to do so.
Scott Green has given his blessing to the Notre Dame faithful to once again cheer for the Fighting Irish and hopefully what is a Buckeye bloodbath. If they could beat them 10 million to nothing, I want that because nobody supports wrestling. Okay, Penn State supports wrestling. Iowa supports wrestling. Michigan supports Oklahoma State supports wrestling. But nobody besides everybody else I just mentioned supports wrestling like the Ohio State Buckeyes. I got their back. I want them to win by a billion, a trillion. I don't know. Whatever the amount you can win by, I want Ohio State to win by that amount. And my
Mind you, you're talking to the least informed college football fan on the planet. I could not name two players on either of those teams.
it's okay. You
So,
don't need to.
like, people were like, "Oh, you're just a Penn State football fan," and I'm like, "I don't know any Penn State football players, dude. Like, I only know Army guys because that's my employer. I could
Yeah, but
probably name some
the
from a
point
few years
is,
ago.
the point
Yeah,
is, we support schools that support the sport of wrestling.
vote with your wallet. Vote with your
Yes,
wallet.
like
Like, don't go to areas. Don't like let's put wrestling tournaments in areas where wrestling is supported. So I love going to Ohio all the time.
it is a travesty that the
Yeah.
University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana, does not have a wrestling team. They could duel within 3 hours, seven Big Ten schools,
Hmm.
whatever, 6, 5, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Illinois, Northwestern,
Yeah.
Wisconsin's a bit of a stretch. Sparty, Michigan State,
Yeah.
Michigan, Purdue, Ohio State. I mean, Indiana. Right? There's all these schools that are right there. They're in the heart of that country, and they've got this massive budget. and they pump it into a football team that, to their credit, is in the national final. But the
Yeah,
point being, you're in the heart of wrestling country in the Midwest, and you don't have a wrestling team because you
yeah,
took the money and you reallocated it from a donor who endowed the program. I
yeah.
just that's
I
my
mean,
that's our point, right?
I don't root for anyone, but like when it's Clemson or Alabama playing a Big Ten school, I say the same thing. I'm like, you got to root for the team that's got wrestling, you know?
I had to smack myself back into Toledo beat Pitt, right?
Yeah,
From the Toledo area. But Toledo dropped the sport of wrestling in like 92, 93.
yep,
And hey, University of Toledo, you can kick rocks.
yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
not gonna I'm
Well,
not going to root, and I was because of Toledo, and I was in the Toledo area at the time. I'm like, this is great. And then I had to I'm like, first off, University of Toledo's never done anything for me.
mhm.
Pitt, those guys have always been really good to me. I'm gonna vote with my wallet, and I'm going to cheer for the Pitt Panthers because they
Yeah,
sponsored wrestling at a high level in the
yeah.
ACC.
Hmm.
Guess
And it
that's
works.
all the point is, right, Scott? I mean,
Yeah,
it's not even a Notre Dame specific thing. I just brought up the
yeah,
University of Toledo.
yeah. No, for sure. And I did consult with my attorney on that one with the defamation thing, who also happens to be Manti Te'o's girlfriend. So they told me that I was in the clear, that I
That was
didn't have
really
anything to
good.
worry about
That
from a legal standpoint.
that joke right there that is that was below the radar and really good. A sneaky good joke on your part. I like that one, right?
Yeah. So
Wow, that was good.
they they assured me that I'm in the clear and I have
I
nothing to
love
worry
it.
about from a legal
As long as
standpoint.
those
So
Manti Te'o's girlfriend, like you're definitely in. I know that.
yeah.
Did you got anything else for me? What else you got for me? I know you got something. There's something I didn't ask you, or I
Nah,
didn't bring
man.
up, or what? Where did Zeb slight you? Where did Zeb miss the mark tonight?
No, I think we're good. Like, what else have we been talking about around the room, like around the campfire? Look at like a lot of people don't know this, and I'm gonna give you credit where credit is due because we've talked about him a lot tonight. You're more than just an Ohio fan. You're a recruiting contact. Like, you're the first person I called about Lucas Stoddard, and so like you are that guy who I think first thing you told me about him was that man. He don't know what he's doing yet, but he's pretty mean. And I was like, I'm in, right? So like there's a connection there. And like, we were talking about the other day with Lucas. He was like, where did you even like hear about me? And I was like, well, like that's a Zeb pickup right there, for
He,
sure.
he lost a semifinal match.
Yeah,
He had a state semifinal match his junior year, and he
yeah.
wore those. Does he still wear those stupid headgear with the bunner, with the head
Uh,
thing?
trying to work away from that.
Yeah, thank you. Anyhow, and I
He
was like,
has on occasion snapped his headgear onto his singlet strap, which is down. But
okay,
that's just a heavyweight thing.
that's the
Yeah,
Chiaga County thing too, though. Anyhow, he lost a semifinal match to this dude from Archbold. He never, duty, like, I'm gonna send it to you. You're gonna be like, oh my, it will enrage you to watch it.
yeah,
Like, it was almost like Lucas, he almost like tripped and fell, or the guy sat the corner and had a slide by at the same time, and that's how the guy scored the winning. So it was
yeah,
something like that, though. Like,
yeah,
Lucas almost like found a way to lose the match, which he doesn't do because he's so hard nosed and he's tough and he's always going. But
yeah,
man, I was like, oh, this match is so frustrating to watch. And I'm a Northwest Ohio guy. I'm an
yeah,
arch from the area I'm from. But now I live over here, so I'm like torn, and I'm just like, I just love good wrestling. This guy wrestles real hard. He wears the stupid headgear. He
yeah,
somehow found a way to lose this match. But I really like that was the one that really
yeah.
I was like, whoa, this guy can wrestle.
And he's like, I mean, there's a bunch of different examples of it, but that's who we are a lot, you know? Like, there's a kid who you're talking about losing a goofy state semifinal match, and here we are 3, 4 years later, and he's got a world team appearance and NCAA qualification as a freshman. So, like my conversations with him are always like, where he's trying to figure out what I got to do to get to the next level. And what I say to him all the time is, listen, like what you've already overcome is way bigger than what the next step is for you. Like, and that resonates with guys on our team because they're like, Charlie Farmer, like these guys who are coming in not big prospects, and they're like trying to figure out, all right, I'm ranked 20th. How do I get to 10th? And I'm like, how do I get to the podium? And I'm like, dude, like Ben Pazook, same thing. Like the progress that you've made, what you've overcome, not being Blair, Wyoming Seminary, Graham, St. Ed kid, not having all these accolades coming in, like where you've that progress you made, what you've overcome is so much bigger than what you have left to overcome. And dude, like you've already proven that you can do it. So next level is within your grasp. You just gotta believe. So that's pretty exciting for us to work with kids like him. And we got a handful of them on the team, and it's just awesome to see that development in areas where you might not expect it. So that's what I got left for you is how excited we are to continue to produce kids like Lucas Stoddard and develop them and have them shock the world a little bit in terms of what they can accomplish when they get to us.
Person Meyer versus Lucas Stoddard.
I'll look it up.
I know you already got it. It's already a text sent to you. Him about that match, and he'll be like,
Mhm.
"Oh my God, you guys!" It was like it was the Carson Meyer guy was just a gamer that weekend, and he
Yeah.
won a state title. He earned it, right?
Yep.
Um,
Well, I
but
know what Lucas
Stoddard
and I
was
are watching
on him,
tomorrow.
man. Wait till you watch it. You're gonna be like, "Okay, I see what you're talking about." But that's
I
where
probably
things
watched it years and years ago, but forgot it, blocked it out. But yeah, I know what we're watching on the bus to American tomorrow.
oh man, the kid's gonna want to crush me. He's gonna grab me. He's all big and gigantic now, and he filled out. Right? What does he weigh now?
He- Over 270.
What? He's 270.
He's so smiley.
Stayed at 190 as a senior.
When he gets off the scale after weighing 270, he gets a big smile on his face. So
I love it.
yeah,
Scott Green, stick
let's
around.
go.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate you.
Of
We'll
course.
talk off camera here a little bit,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you, my friend, and
All right.
we'll keep it real and see you in Philadelphia.
Looking forward to it. All right. Appreciate it. Go